Greetings and welcome to DAM for Healthcare Day. This is my first time as a conference chair, so I greatly appreciate this growth opportunity. And thank you to all the attendees from around the world joining us to celebrate the use of DAM in the healthcare sector. We also thank our sponsors, Frontify, ComWrap Reply, and Risetime for supporting the event, and we invite you to visit their virtual booths throughout the conference via the exhibition tab and find out more about these great companies. My name is John Price, and I am honored to be the conference chair for today's DAM for Healthcare Day. I've been in the marketing and digital asset management arena for nearly 15 years, and today our focus is healthcare. And we have some great sessions planned for this virtual event. Plus, we want to encourage you to take the time and explore the platform and engage with the speakers and your fellow attendees, a chance to network and find out more about the people who are involved in DAM, especially in the healthcare area. As you all know, DAM is a core application in digital marketing across lots of different industries. So, why are we focusing on healthcare? Why are many of the players in the DAM and the content marketing space pivoting and paying more attention now to this healthcare space? The key in understanding what is fueling this attention to the healthcare market is really the size and growth in this sector. Let me just share a couple of things to give you an idea of this. First, the global healthcare industry is predicted to grow at more than 8% per year, reaching nearly $21 trillion by 2030. The US market alone is $3.6 trillion, and it's expected to grow at nearly 10.5% per year. And healthcare in the US makes up nearly 20% of the economy. So as you can see, that's a huge market. Plus, healthcare organizations are investing more in digital marketing and digital ads, and the spending is expected to reach nearly $20 billion by the end of this year. Marketing executives in the healthcare space certainly recognize the importance of content marketing, and 70% already have a content strategy in place. So with all of these stats, you see that the industry certainly is deserving of a lot of attention. While there's no specifics on DAM adoption in the healthcare and pharma space, we can discern some general trends. Seeing the overall size of the market and the growth in marketing spend is certainly motivating vendors, integrators, and service companies in the DAM space, and they're beginning to pivot and pay more attention to this industry. And as most of us already know, managing digital content in healthcare organizations is more complex and demanding than other industries, primarily due to the volume, the scope, and the explosion of data. The healthcare vertical faces the typical DAM challenges, which we all know and we all love, and these include managing brands and products across departments and geographies, faster creation to delivery cycles, which means an accelerated life cycle as content moves through its life cycle, managing the digital rights and privacy. Plus, in every organization, there's an ever-growing number of users, partners, agencies, and delivery touch points. That's common in every DAM, in every industry, as you go out in the different arenas looking at what's going on in the market. However, the formidable challenge for DAM in healthcare, beauty, and life sciences is that these industries are heavily regulated, and ensuring compliance with complex regulations is paramount. Medical, legal, and regulatory review and approval, called MLR, is a critical yet very time-consuming and involved process. It poses significant challenges for DAM, especially in these areas. First, it's a very complex and lengthy review process. it frequently involves multiple stakeholders, multiple departments that need to review and approve assets. And this just extends the timeline for approval and before those assets can be used in effective marketing. And with all those review processes, there's a lot of version control to manage all of those multiple iterations of the assets that are going on through the process. Another area is managing and tracking all of the data. Plus, as you go through the review and approval, you need to audit all of the different approvals as they go through, the different status that they have, and making sure that it's going through the process correctly, as well as managing the metadata, the compliance, the rights clearances, and usage requirements. All of this can be error prone and mistakes can be very costly. And that's the last one. That's the next one, compliance risks due to any errors in the content, in the distribution, in the usage, and in data privacy, which can lead to those consequences for severe legal and financial reasons. And lastly, as our systems and the infrastructure grows more complex, integration with those existing systems as well as new systems, including CRM systems, marketing automation, and other platforms, becomes a crucial part of how DAM plays in that sandbox. Luckily, the DAM industry, is stepping up. The speakers and sessions in today's DAM for Healthcare Day will help you better understand those dynamics and the key drivers in the healthcare market and how DAM is a key part in supporting that growth. I greatly appreciate Henry Stewart for making this event possible. Henry Stewart has a proven record as the go-to place to find out about the DAM market. They organize events throughout the year and around the globe, including today's virtual healthcare event, webinars, and the largest industry-shaping conferences dedicated to digital asset management. I've been participating in Henry Stewart DAM events for the last 10 years, and they are an essential resource for professional networking, professional growth, and to explore and discuss the latest trends, gain more skills, and learn how to make DAM work better for you. And of course, thank you to all the attendees for joining to celebrate the use of DAM in the healthcare sector. And again, special thanks to our sponsors, Frontify, ComRap Reply, and Risetime for supporting the event. And don't forget to visit them throughout the conference and via the exhibition tab to find out more. During the sessions, we encourage you to chat with your fellow attendees and of course, make the most of our expert speaker lineup by submitting your questions using the Q&A panel on the right side of your screen. You can also use the chat tab to get the conversation going and navigate to the lounge tab where you can participate in real-time networking with industry peers. If at any point during the event you need assistance from the Henry Stewart team, please use the chat bot on the top left corner of your screen. Now, on with the show. I'm delighted to introduce our first session with Jarrod Gingras from the Real Story Group. He'll be discussing the trends impacting today's healthcare organizations that are causing the profile of DAM to rise.
Thank you, John. It's great to be here with everyone and with you today, John. And I just wanted to say my own thank you to Henry Stewart and all of you for committing to a day like DAM for Healthcare. I think it's really important to take the learnings of so many different speakers who are so focused on a similar challenge in providing elite experiences to help improve the quality of life for people, and do that through the lens of something so specific as digital asset management. It's really kind of fun to do. So often we see these conversations so watered down. So to have this conversation through a real clear lens is really important. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. So today I'm going to talk about DAM's critical role in today's healthcare environments. And the way I'm going to structure this is highlight 7 big trends that we've been watching over the last couple of years, and I think I'm pretty confident that we're going to be continuing to watch over the next few as well. Just a little bit of context as I begin here. I'm bringing to the table an analyst view. So I have the privilege of watching a bunch of different vendors from a whole bunch of different, in a whole bunch of different industries, and analyzing what they're good at, and maybe more importantly, what they're not so good at, so that you as buyers can make the right decision for what you're trying to do. So this is our kind of famous or infamous subway map, if you will, that each of these lines represents an area of technology that we're following on an ongoing basis. One of those purple lines in there represents the DAM marketplace. And I always say to people, don't read too much into this. Don't obsess over who's next to who. But if there's one takeaway that I like to highlight here is, as potential DAM customers, you have options. And as buyers, having options is always a good thing. So you have options from some of the biggest names in software, and you have best of breed options out on the periphery. And again, competition and options are always good things when you're in the buyer's side of the table. We are an analyst firm at Real Story Group, but sometimes we like to call ourselves a non-traditional analyst firm. And really that takes its root in the fact that our business model is very different than any other analyst firm we've ever found. We don't work for any of those vendors I showed you on that subway map on the previous screen. We do not advise them on their product strategy. We don't speak at their events. We don't accept meals or travel or anything like that. We exist solely to help you all make the right decision, to sit truly on the buyer's side of the table. We've been around for a little over 23 years now, and we've had the privilege of working with clients of all shapes and sizes in every single industry. But I can honestly sit here and say that some of the most gratifying work that I've had the opportunity to conduct over my own 25 years in the content technology space, it really goes back to some of the work we've done with some of the biggest healthcare systems, the biggest hospitals, the biggest children's hospitals in the world, and to know that you're helping people who help others is really important to the work that we've done. So I appreciate those of you who I've had the opportunity to work with on this call. I know there are a few of you, so thank you for that. Finally, I just wanted to highlight the ways that we work with our customers, just so that you understand where we're coming from here. We help people pick technology. So as I mentioned, we're analysts. We're analyzing the technology out there. We produce research, a little bit like Consumer Reports. We produce evaluations as to what the different vendors and their products are good at and what they're not so good at. Oftentimes, we're called in at more of a macro level to look at your entire technology stack and look at where you might have redundancies, where you might have gaps, and give you a real practical roadmap to getting there. So we advise at the product level, but also at the stack level. And then finally, the third way we work with our clients is we host a series of meetings in the context of a council that is comprised of some of our biggest clients, including some of the biggest healthcare systems in the world who have a seat at that table. But these peers meet regularly to tell us what's important to them. What are their biggest pain points? What are their biggest concerns? And in that vendor-free sharing environment, that really helps guide our roadmap and where we want to spend most of our time in investigating from a research perspective. And a lot of those lessons, filter its way into not only just into our research, but into a session like this, where I can talk about some of the trends we're seeing. These aren't just trends that I made up. These are real trends that others are seeing as well. I've been doing this a long time. I am our lead DAM analyst here at Real Story Group, but we also, a few years back, put together a book called The Right Way to Select Technology that is based in some design thinking methodologies that if you are looking for technology, whether it's in DAM or any of the other areas that I showed you on that map, let me know. I'll be happy to give you a copy of the book. I think it's a real different way of thinking about this, and I think it's a real valuable way of thinking if you're about to embark on a technology selection. So I'll throw that offer out there. Feel free to email me after. I'll get you a link to the ebook copy of that. All right, let's get into the trends. Like I said, I have 7 trends that I bubbled up today, some of which are kind of uber trends that are really affecting all industries as it relates to DAM, and some have some really, really important impacts on the healthcare space I'm gonna highlight as we go through. So number one, we're seeing some real distinct market and buyer phases emerging as it relates to DAM, and this is one of those uber trends. Some of you may have seen this way of categorizing a DAM practitioner or DAM owner's life cycle and maturity and progression throughout the years. Oftentimes they start in a 1.0 environment, but they have real goals of advancing up this chart to a 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 world. And that sort of progression is very indicative of how many of us mature in the space, but it's also very indicative of how the market is aligned. And there are certain vendors that specializes in 1.0 environments versus 2.0 versus 3.0, 4.0 environments. So that's something to really keep in mind as we go through this. But just quickly, I want to take you through what I view as characteristics of organizations in each of these phases of their DAM lifecycle. So number one is something we call DAM as a standalone library. So oftentimes this is how many of you who are just getting started, you might have assets everywhere in your organization, across shared drives, Dropbox, Box, SharePoint, whatever. And you want to say, let's get our hands around this content. Let's start organizing it in a proper way. And so you put your first DAM into place, and that's a vast improvement than having assets scattered across your enterprise. But typical of a 1.0 organization, it's another place that you have to go to pull assets out of to then go put them somewhere else to do something with it. So typically a 1.0 organization is, that technology is not quite integrated into the larger stack. It's kind of a standalone repository. In a 2.0 organization, DAM changes that paradigm. It is definitely connected to a larger stack, and oftentimes it's a critical part of a workflow from an upstream perspective, flowing with assets flowing into a DAM, and a downstream integration where assets are flowing out of a DAM into something else. So no longer do I have to go somewhere else to do it. That flow is happening. But if there's one kind of thing that I want to clue you in on a 2.0 organizations in 2024, these organizations typically have a one-way flow of information. So again, into the DAM and then out of the DAM, not coming back. Where this model really gets interesting in my mind and as I talk to our clients, it seems like I don't go a day without having multiple conversations around organizations asking, how do I get to a 3.0 and beyond? And oftentimes they have a 4.0 vision, but I tell them you have to get to 3.0 before you can get to 4.0. And that's really where we start to think different about assets in general. We start to think bigger. We start to think as media and narrative and data all as first-class objects. We start to think about maybe our traditional definitions of asset management isn't good enough, and I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. And then we start to think about breaking that model of just a one-way flow of information and thinking about how can we pull in analytics, once our assets and content is out in the world, how can we pull that back into our system so that we can better inform future decisions, so that it's not just a one-way, it's actually a two-way flow of information. And then finally, a DAM 4.0 world that I thought when I first created this model, I thought that we were years away from this, but I can sit here telling you this is the plans are very much underway in moving towards a DAM 4.0 world. The advent of the AI explosion, that we've all experienced in the last few years has been the fuel to the fire that is getting us to think about how can we really take advantage of what we know about our assets to have our technologies get smarter and suggest better performing assets? How can we ask our systems questions and get really smart answers back? How can we then use our learning, use our data, use our content, and combine that to then create new content on the fly using AI? So all that is very much happening. I'm sure you're going to hear a lot about that as we progress through the day today, but I have some thoughts that I'm going to share with you as we go along. So with that as kind of the backdrop, is kind of that Uber trend, I wanted to dig into some real details, trends, if you will. And John, in his intro, mentioned workflow. And I think workflow is always a challenge, regardless of what industry you're in. Especially when we talk about that 2.0 world that moved from a standalone library to a connected service, invariably we're talking about assets going through stages of workflow. And in healthcare, this is critical, right? We talked about medical and legal and regulatory review. There's no shortage of third-party agencies and partners that we all work with. And so it's not surprising that almost every vendor today, from a DAM, every DAM vendor that is, offers some type of workflow baked into their system. But for the most part, I would argue that what you get in terms of workflow from a DAM vendor is probably not going to meet all of your needs in the healthcare space. The regulations and the workflow challenges are often so rigid that buyers in most cases say, that's great, I can do some things with the workflow light that comes with my DAM, but I might need something else. And the good news here is that there's lots of options for buyers, right? There's lots of options on a lightweight level, all the way to some really complicated workflow solutions that allow you an enormous amount of flexibility. And so that range of solutions out there to solve this challenge is pretty great. But workflow is never easy, right? It's to integrate with a DAM system to a workflow system, just making that integration is actually pretty easy in today's day and age. But to do it well and to really allow your people, your colleagues who are working with assets, who are doing the approvals, who are sending assets through a workflow, for them to have the confidence that it's helping them do their jobs better and more efficiently, to do that is hard. And those types of integrations are what we all desire. And I think where I see a lot of struggles in today's day and age. Finally, I want to point out, there's been some pretty big vendor changes that I'm sure some of you are feeling. Most notably, the kind of the very public split of Veeva and Salesforce, and that continues to have its ramifications in the healthcare space. And so we've seen a lot of healthcare organizations come to us and say, hey, we need to think differently about how we approach not just CRM, but workflow and DAM, and should we go all under the same umbrella? Should we pick best of breed solutions? Should we focus on the integrations? There's no one size fit all right answer here, but the key to me is, I don't care what solution you pick, you need to think about your colleagues and make sure that you're providing a solution that helps them do their job, not hinders their job in the process. Trend number 2 is another one of those fairly big trends, and that's organizations thinking beyond just the traditional way we've always thought of digital asset management, and particularly the systems that we need to manage digital assets. So I mentioned when we cross that chasm into a 3.0 world, you're now thinking bigger than just images, video, and audio files. In most organizations today, they're saying, I don't want to just manage assets for the sake of managing assets. I want to manage assets so I can give my colleagues the tools they need, the building blocks they need to create delightful experiences at every single touch point, in every single channel, at every single stage in a customer journey. And so there's been a trend in recent years to rethink the way you're managing content and information, the way you're managing data, and the way you're managing rules for which those things all come together and get presented to someone on that journey. And so I challenge you all today to think bigger than just traditional asset management. So start to think about what is truly omni-channel that I should be managing as an experience itself. Should I be thinking about text and copy in the same way I'm thinking about managing images and video? Should I think about promotions or offers or micro experiences, which might be data combined with content, combined with code, and as a standalone experience? And it's a fundamental shift in how we think about managing things, but I think this is a massive trend that we're going to continue to see buyers desire, because it's really hard to create cohesive experiences if we're all working in separate systems. And so just to take that one step further, just give some examples. When we talk about content and information, we're not just talking about images and video and audio. You might be talking about copy and product information. You might be talking about user-generated content. From a data perspective, you might be talking about patient data that you might be talking about patient activity or product data that you want to marry up with certain patient information. And then you have rules, all of which create experiences. And that's where this notion of maybe we should be thinking about managing experiences more than as a primary focus, more than managing just assets, because I think sometimes managing assets as a concept can be a bit limiting. Next up is this notion of smarter asset tracking. And this is where, again, it builds upon this notion of this two-way flow of information. I know when I work with any organizations, when they first get involved with DAM, they love the fact that I can have some control, not perfect control, but some control over learning where my content is being used, right? Obviously, as some things get outside of a system, you lose some of that control. But the promise of a modern digital asset management system is to say, I at least know who downloaded something out of my system, or I know it's appearing on this channel, in this digital channel, and on this website, in this application, on this in this kiosk, in my hospital, or in a variety of different modalities, right? And I can trace it all back to a single source. That's the premise of DAM, or the promise of DAM. When I work with healthcare organizations, there's all that need, but then there's also an elevated need, because I hear stories of situations where unfortunately a patient has been maybe lost, and you need to figure out, where did we use that patient's image, and can we swap it out with something else really quickly? And we need to know every print piece that's been in, every digital channel that appears in. There's also a number of claims that get made by healthcare organizations, and you want to often know who saw what at what time, so that notion of doing full audits on content and experiences is really important. But just because we can round trip data to live side by side with our content doesn't mean that's easy, right? And I think this is a bit of a stumbling block where we sit in today's day and age. I think it's really hard for vendors to present analytics back across a bunch of different channels in a real meaningful way, so that it informs a future human decision. So I think today it's really one of the big stumbling blocks is the UI challenges that presents. Number 4 is this notion of AI requiring smarter content views. We all talk about AI. I'm sure we're all drowning in AI. We're all being challenged at our organizations to use AI to our advantage. When I talk to organizations outside of the healthcare industry, one of the biggest challenges that they face is they actually face the hard truth that oftentimes they don't have enough content to have the AI learn exactly what they want it to learn, right? It's too limited of a sample size. My experience in the healthcare space is you all are mostly drowning in content. There's so much content. So that's good news. Also good news is I think DAMs are pretty well positioned to help us filter our content down to some logical learning sets that we can point our AI at so it learns in the way that we want it to do. I mean, you're going to hear me say this time and time again in the next few minutes, but all content is not equal. So being able to filter your content and provide some really smart views of your content and then point your AI to learn off of those views is where we're going to get the most power out of AI, I think. So we're going to put a real premium on how good is my content? What does my data hygiene look like? What does my metadata hygiene look like? How good is my content stored at the right granularity so that I can present the right level of information to the AI system and then have the AI system pump it back out in a meaningful way. And obviously sophisticated access control is going to be a big part of that. But the good news that a lot of that is often comes with your DAM. I told you I was going to say all content is not equal. And when we talk about using analytics to suggest better performing assets, we better have a really good story around how we're going to distinguish which content is more important than the others. And in order to do that, in my mind, our content and data need to get more close than ever. And I know I already said that in a previous trend, but I think sometimes it's not even a technical challenge. Sometimes I think organizations stumble around this trend because their teams are so separate. I have my data team over here, my content team over here. I'm a content person, but I'm a data person, and never the two shall meet. But I think our teams need to get closer, as well as our technology needs to get closer, so that our data can get closer to our content, so that we can give some weighting to different content and say, hey, this piece of content is more important than that. We want our AI to put more emphasis on this type of content, but not that type of content. It's not just throwing all content at an AI engine and expecting it to learn equally. Of course, I have to keep talking about AI because as an analyst looking at the technology in this space, there's a lot of hype out there, and every single vendor, and this is just a generic stack, that could be your stack, could be someone else's stack. It doesn't matter. But the one constant, or the one truth that is across the board is that AI is everywhere. Every single vendor out there has an AI story, and I don't blame them. That's what's selling today. That's what's getting buyers' attention. But that scares me, because when you really dig under the hood as to what is being offered to you as AI as a feature, you're going to see some real disparities in terms of the models from vendor to vendor, the different licenses that exist from vendor to vendor, the different capabilities that exist from vendor to vendor. And I'm really worried that we have all these different disjointed AI features across our organization that are going to lead to disjointed experiences again. And those are the kind of things we're trying to avoid. And the smarter companies that I've observed recently are those that have said, hey, let's pump the brakes here. Let's not just sign up for every single feature without a view as to how does this impact our enterprise as a whole. And there's a lot of hype around generative AI, but I think that's just part of it. There's insights AI, there's decisioning AI. But I think if we start to think about AI as a whole, as a foundational element to our enterprise that our systems can plug into, so that we have a common model to pull from. We have some common learnings that we can pull from. And as long as we have the capabilities to slice and dice that to our needs, I think we're going to be a lot better off than everyone trying to do AI off on their own and then trying to reconcile that in experience form without something going wrong. And finally, I'm going to go quickly here so I leave a little bit of time for questions. As we sit here today, I mentioned the phases of DAM. Unfortunately, when we look at the market, some vendors are very well positioned to be your 3.0 and with a very keen eye on a 4.0 world. But some vendors, quite frankly, are just stuck. They're stuck being a 1.0 vendor or a 2.0 vendor, and maybe they'll never be a 3.0 vendor. And that's not necessarily bad, but it's bad if you want to get to 4.0, right? So I encourage you to really dig into their capabilities in terms of, are they set up to handle the complex relationships you need to have with your content types in your, as you begin to expand your view of what you should be managing in terms of experiences, well, with your content alongside your data, alongside your narrative, do you have the systems in place that are ready to get you to where you need to go? And that puts more pressure on you as buyers. But it's, again, good news here is that there are options. The bad news is you have to do your homework to make sure that you're going to find a partner who's going to go on the journey with you. All right. I'll wrap up there with 5 minutes left for some questions. John, I think you've been monitoring the Q&A. Do we have any questions?
All right, find my mute button. Yeah, we do have a couple of questions. We have one from Annie Erdman that's a good one. Her question is, do you see a hopeful future where we can integrate our DAM and our MAM systems with an external workflow management system? Are DAMs opening up to play nice with other best-in-class workflow vendors and products?
Hey, I'm glad to hear from Annie. I've had the pleasure of working with Annie in the past, and this is my chance. I'm going to say, go to her session this afternoon. I'm sure it's going to be great. She's she's one of the shining stars in this space. She's amazing. So thank you, Annie. But Annie, I am hopeful about this, right? I think where I might have been more pessimistic in the past was when people, especially in the healthcare space, were afraid to take a best of breed approach. You know, they were almost looking for a safer approach, being, I'm going to get everything from one vendor, and they're going to worry about the integrations for me. I think that doesn't always work in today's day and age, right? And I think we see that across outside of the healthcare space as well. Just going with the big name logos for your entire stack, or trying to find a stack in a box, is not a good approach. So I'm encouraged that the tone and tenor of the whole technology buyer, I think, it's changed recently, where people are more apt to think about a composable architecture, that you're really finding the best of breed approaches for your needs. And the good news is that the APIs of these systems have gotten better. It is easier to do these integrations, but again, I'm going to put my user experience hat on. Don't lose sight of the end user experience that you're creating when you integrate systems, because ultimately, with best of breed solutions, you're creating an experience for your colleagues to do work, and that you can't lose sight of, and make that your primary goal is to improve the way they work. But I am encouraged in that.
Yeah, those are great points. It's good to hear that the buyers are becoming more sophisticated. But also your point on don't lose sight of the user experience, making sure that it's easy for users to navigate around. And of course, there's got to be questions on AI. So one question from, I believe it's Jennifer Dawson, maybe. Anyway, the question is, how do you foresee AI affecting HIPAA compliance, if at all?
Well, I'm sure it's going to affect it in some way. I'm not going to claim I'm going to be an expert in that, but I think we're all scared of AI, right? We're all excited about AI, but we're all deep down, we have some in a highly regulated industry. That's our fears are probably heightened, and for good reason. So to me, it comes back to, we can't just throw everything we have at an AI engine and hope to be compliant at the end of the day, right? I think that's where DAMs have a real role in helping us here. Is like, can we segment up portions of our content and really wall that off, so that, and say, hey, let's throw our AI at this very distinct segment of content and have it bring something back to us here. And likewise, when we talk about, I don't think a lot of patient data should belong in our DAM systems by any means, but there's always some linkage, right? And so if we do this right, we have to be really certain that we wall off our patient data from our content. But we all want to learn from that patient data, but we can't have it all mixed up. So I think the native filtering aspects of a DAM that it provides are going to be our best friend in really helping to segment some things and draw some clear lines and establish some clear parameters here, so that what is AI and what's not AI is really, or impacted by AI, is going to be really important. And then having that audit trail of who saw what is going to be, the proof that we did it right.
Yeah, so you made a great point in your presentation, breaking out the different the trajectory of DAM over time and getting up to the 4.0 with the AI. One of the challenges that I've seen and have been dealing with lately is a lot of there's a lot of DAM out there. A lot of organizations have DAM,
Yep.
but a lot of them are legacy DAMs. So they have older data models. They have lots of data that hasn't been normalized, lots of data that may not play very nice in the modern organization with all of the other systems that require the data. So one of the questions that I have is as your AI requires lots of data, but you have a lot of legacy data that's not the most hygienic data. Talking to healthcare people, they aren't practicing good data hygiene.
Yeah.
How can that impact your predictive models then? You have a whole bunch of dirty data in, well, I shouldn't say dirty data. You have a bunch of bad data in there. How is that going to impact your predictive models, and what do you see that the industry or people can do about that when they're looking at going into AI?
No, it's a great point, and I think it's AI and doing an automation in general is going to shine the light on this bad
Mhm.
hygiene of our data. But it's not just data too. I don't want to beat up on data. It's bad content too, and it's
Yeah.
redundant content. It's content not structured at the right level. It's content that's not equal. This old content isn't, that we are archiving, but maybe we're treating it in the same way as the newest content. How's an AI engine going to know exactly what to do with that without telling it what to do with that? So it's definitely shining a light on those things. We're going to have to, the smarter organizations are getting that hygiene in order, and then structuring their teams in a way to have those data and content conversations in a meaningful way. That's what I'm seeing right now, and I continue. Unfortunately, people are making mistakes, and then they're going back to that because they're trying to move so fast with AI. I think the smarter organizations are really making sure they're ready before they go full bore with AI. So there's a lot of piloting happening, and a lot of
Hmm.
you know hard realizations that are happening coming out of those pilots.
So we've got about a minute and a half, so I'm going to give you a chance just to sort of wrap up. What would you give as your key learning, as an analyst, your key piece of advice to these
Yeah,
organizations that are moving forward, especially in healthcare? What's the one thing that you would like to have them take away?
yeah. Well, when it comes to my world, which is helping people select technology, it's all about fitness to purpose, right? So I want you to really have a clear idea of what you're trying to do, and I want you to go find a tool or a set of tools that fit the purpose or fundamentally built to going on that journey with you, right? And that's a technology conversation. That's a partner conversation, a skill set conversation, and a value conversation that is happening with as you evaluate fit for who's gonna help you get there. But yeah, fitness to purpose, have the right tool for the job. You're gonna be much better off in the long run.
Well, it was a great session, Jarrod. With that, we're going to wrap up your session and move on to the next one. Our next session, we're going to be hearing from Frontify and learn a little bit more about how healthcare brands can increase their content efficiency and improve DAM usage with self-serve brand templates. So on to the next session.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.